Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be reviewing the Corsair Sabre V2 Pro. Now this is a pretty controversial mouse, right? Because it's practically an A950 Air, except redesigned and quote-unquote built from the ground up by Corsair. It's mostly just a redesign with some different parts, but I'll get into that. Now I will say I am fairly impressed, but I think the credit will be going to the A950 Air now that more information has came out about the similarities and the differences between the two mice. I will try and discuss that at the end, but let's just get through my experience with this first. So first up, build quality. Build quality, if you watch other reviews, you know that there's some weakness on the top, back here, and in front here. I'm not going to press on it because honestly I think those locations aren't high pressure grip locations, and when you just grip it normally and right around under the side buttons where you're gonna grip it, it's actually quite rigid. They did reinforce it quite well, so I don't think it's anything to be concerned about with the build quality. The weight is also exceptional. It's pretty well balanced right around under the side buttons, around 36 grams, which is about perfect for a mouse this small. I'd expect around that 35 to like 48 grams is about like where I'd want to see a mouse this small sort of fall. I'd say my upper limit for a mouse this small is around like 55 grams, but above that, like you really feel the density. Onto the clicks, I'd say this is the weakest part. They're dull, not fantastic rebound mechanicals. It's just not a super well implemented mechanical solution, and they are forced to 8 millisecond debounds, which is just like absurd. I usually run mechanicals on 2 to 1 millisecond. Maybe if it's a particularly sensitive switch that can double click, I would put it on 4 like back in the day, but 8 milliseconds is just way too high. The coating is, as you can see, I have grip tape on, but I did use this for the majority of my time with it without grip tape, and I'd say the coating it's almost like a fine PBT sort of matte polish, where it's basically you can still feel a little bit of graininess. It's kind of like a ping pong ball, where you can feel a little bit of like the micro grain, but it's pretty smooth and slippery once your hand is a little bit moist. So I did in the end put on grip tape, especially if I'm testing this in like Valorant, which is a game that's especially sensitive to like a really tense grip. I find that the coating just does not help, and I had to put it on to test in Valorant. But for other games, I'd say it's relatively fine, can grip it, the shape is good enough. The sensor it's good. I'd say the implementation is fine. I didn't feel any particularly like stuttery or sort of that laggy feeling with some cheaper sensor implementations. This feels fairly smooth. The polling rate does drain the battery quite fast. I tested this on 2K, but on 2K I will have to note there is some nasty wireless interference with other mice plugged in, so I dropped it down to 1K, and 1K worked flawlessly. Super smooth. Like, you don't really feel anything that tells you that this is a cheap sensor implementation, so I will commend them for that. And another thing I can commend is the skates. Skates on my white copy are quite fluid, quite fast, quite smooth. They're a little thin, but they work quite well, so I will commend them on those two aspects. The sensor implementation is a little bit low down, but I didn't feel it being like particularly annoying or slow to play with, so I think that's fine. Now on to the controversial part, which is going to be the shape. And I think the shape, let's just talk about the shape just on its own first. I think this compares well to the mice that I currently own. That this compares well with is probably the Hyperlight. They're both small mice. They're both like smaller mice with big pad skates, relatively flat sides, but this does flare out more at the back. And that's saying I prefer the Hyperlight. I will get an ATK F1 Extreme in soon, or an F1 V2 to compare with this, and I'll do a grand review of both. But between these two shapes, I prefer the Hyperlight. I do prefer the side curvature of the Corsair. And my biggest gripe is the hump is way too forward. Like, I'm not able to get really that nice palm support I'm looking for from a claw grip mouse. Fingertip, I think this works pretty darn well. I think the scroll wheel is also a little stiff for the lack of palm support, so you might get a little shakiness, especially with the weight. When you scroll, the scroll is kind of on the stiff side. The click is fine. Side buttons are pretty spammable as well. The main clicks and scroll wheel is just not it, but like the side buttons are pretty well implemented. They do sink in, but they are nice, snappy. They extrude out quite a bit, and they are spammable. Then the scroll wheel click is also pretty spammable, but then the wheel itself is stiff. The encoder is stiff. And yeah, like the flat side I do appreciate, but the hump profile is just not there for me. I prefer the Hyperlight, and I think this is a much more high quality product for a similar weight class, similar size class, and similar ideologies in design. But I think I will prefer the F1 more, but just preemptively, I don't have one in. I just know that I prefer a thinner grip width, and the Hyperlight is kind of wide, so I think I will prefer the F1 more. Anyway, on to controversies. This is now completely exposed as a redesigned A950 Air. Sensor position is practically identical. The PCB, from what I've heard, is basically identical. And they've just redesigned the skates and the click design, and I've heard that it's slightly improved. I don't have an A950 Air to compare, but the price difference is roughly $50 to $60, which for a mouse with global distribution, I think it's fine. I think mouse with global Western distribution should cost roughly $40 to $50 more. That's about the limit. If it goes over $70, it's not worth, right? It's not worth it compared to a clone. But this came second, and it didn't really improve on anything that the A950 did badly, right? It didn't majorly improve anything. So along with the force 8 millisecond debounce, I had to say that it's both sus that there's no real transparency on why such discrepancies, such similarities exist, especially when they try to pass it off as their own design. I will say the WebDriver is pretty well done, right? And they seem to be taking in feedback. They seem to be taking in customer feedback and trying to improve the software experience and improve the product. So I hope that they come up with something more original. The Qatar or the old Sabre shape, those are very interesting. I would like them to bring that back, because this is essentially just a more expensive A950. If you can buy from AliExpress and you're interested in this general shape, which is kind of Final Mouse-esque, I'd not recommend both. I just go for something more Final Mouse-esque, like an Ippy Float, or that has been very, very like highly regarded, or something like an Incot 029, right? Both of those are very highly regarded. I just don't think that this really does anything special aside from competing with the Crazy Light for being a sub 40 gram mouse for in-person shopping. That's the only niche that this really does well in. As much as it's a good overall product, like I think the entire package is quite compelling. If you're buying online, I just think that it's, along with the controversy, it's just really not worth going for this when the Crazy Light exists for $30 more, which isn't too much, right? You can buy from AliExpress and get the Hyperlight, which I think is just, ATK F1, which is a better shape. There's just a lot more options out there these days. And yeah, to cap off my experience, I'd say it's a good mouse, but shady and just underwhelming for the price. But I think it's not overpriced either. I think it's priced just right, where it's not a bargain, but it's also not like super expensive. Like if you are shopping for that $100 US mark and you can't buy from overseas, this is an okay option, right? It's a good option, but it's not gonna blow you away. And yeah, it's just not a remarkable mouse by any means, but it's also not a terrible mouse. I did have a good experience with it, I will have to say that. And yeah, that's the review. Hope you guys enjoy and enjoy some gameplay I got with it. Bye, thank you.
Kind of on the ace.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
Right.
Face your fear!
Fuck.
One enemy remaining.
Yep. 100 Viper and Racist
One
Viper.
enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Side. Kind of bad drop.
Sorry. Sorry, man.
120 first stairs. So you happy now? Just not kill.
I think he's gonna get the match MVP now. Only got one.
Oh shit.
Point identified.